Want to save time, money, and your sanity while planning your wedding? Subscribe to Wedding Planning Podcast Premium on Apple Podcasts for early ad-free access to all weekly episodes. Plus, an exclusive bonus series that outlines exactly how to use ChatGPT to your advantage with dedicated meetings for customizing your budget, finding the perfect venue, hiring your vendors, and so much more. Save hours of time, avoid tons of wedding overwhelm, and make confident decisions faster. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts and start planning with clarity. Enjoy the show. Why, hello there, and thank you so much as always for joining me here today on the Wedding Planning Podcast. And today we are joined by a very special guest. Dustin Lemick is the CEO and founder of BriteCo. BriteCo is a modern insurance company built for the digital age, and their goal is to simplify the process of securing jewelry and wedding insurance. Mission complete, because streamline and simplify is exactly what BriteCo has done to this industry. It literally couldn't be easier for you to protect your investment in your wedding day and, of course, your beautiful engagement ring. Today, Dustin is going to walk us through everything you need to know about wedding liability and cancellation coverage, and also jewelry insurance. We'll explore all of your wedding insurance FAQs, including how much it costs. And a side note spoiler here, it is shockingly affordable. We're also going to review what exactly is covered, how to determine what type of coverage you need, even how to file a claim. My personal favorite part of today's show is honestly just exploring the blissful benefits that come with knowing that you are completely protected when it comes to all of your priceless wedding memories. So let's get to it, shall we? Here's Dustin to give us the full scoop.
My name is Dustin Lemick. I am the CEO and founder of BriteCo. BriteCo is a modern insurance company built for the digital age. Currently, we offer three different products. One is a jewelry insurance product, so you can think about engagement rings and wedding bands and watches, etc. We also offer wedding coverage. So that is a wedding liability product and also a wedding cancellation product. And sort of our thesis at BriteCo is we really wanted to make purchasing insurance at large a much easier, seamless, better process. And so that's really what we do at BriteCo. And we founded the company. I founded the company in 2018, and we've been growing ever since.
So today we're going to really dig into the insurance types that engaged couples can consider as they're planning a wedding. And if we want to start with jewelry, I would love to have you tell us all about the BriteCo jewelry insurance coverage offerings.
Absolutely. So my background actually comes from the jewelry industry. So my family has retail jewelry stores in Chicago. I was a third generation jeweler and realized that there was a lot of issues with purchasing this coverage. And I'll go into what the coverage actually is and what the product is. But when I was working in the industry, we had a trouble as jewelers with the insurance product, and our customers basically paper applications. It was kind of a confusing process to buy it. So that was sort of the original thesis. But what the jewelry insurance product is it's coverage for jewelry and watches. And like I said before, that's engagement rings and wedding bands and watches and earrings and any fine jewelry that you can imagine, we insure. Our insurance product is really strong. We offer coverage for loss and theft, damage. And then the big one is mysterious disappearance, which is kind of the leading reason for coverage to trigger. There's a whole host of different reasons for somebody to trigger the coverage and file a claim. As I mentioned, mysterious disappearance is the biggest, certainly not the only one, but it's the largest. And I can give you an example. It's kind of what it sounds like. Somebody lost their wedding band and they don't really know what happened. Like they know that it wasn't stolen. There wasn't like a theft or anything like that. And there's obviously wasn't damage. It's gone. They had it on their finger 2 days ago, and now they gone and they can't find it. It's sort of mysteriously disappeared. Like a homeowner's policy, for instance, won't cover that, or most won't, I should say. And that's a big misconception in the industry is that, or amongst consumers, I should say, is that homeowners insurance is actually adequate coverage for a fine piece of jewelry or an engagement ring, which really it's not. And so that's an example of mysterious disappearance. The other coverage reasons or types would be damage. So if somebody dropped the ring and a stone popped out, or prongs are bent, or, we've seen some really crazy things. We've seen dogs eating rings, and that's not a joke. We actually have seen a dog that ate a ring, and funny enough, the couple recovered the ring. So use your imagination on that one.
Some personal scenarios that I've witnessed. My husband has lost two wedding rings. Actually, he lost one on our honeymoon swimming in the ocean. He lost the second when he was swimming at a pool and took it off his finger and just set it on the side of the pool. Not best practice. And then, as a woman with my engagement ring, I know, especially at the beginning, I would take it off every single time I washed my
hmm
hands. And I know a lot of people do that as well. So it doesn't take a huge leap of imagination to imagine being at a restaurant, being somewhere that's not your home. Maybe you're hiking, maybe you're camping. You take that ring off to wash your hands with soap. And it's just so easy, especially in the beginning when you're not used to wearing it all the time. So easy to walk away and just forget about it. It could get lifted by someone else, it could fall down the sink drain, just so many reasons. So, this insurance is really priceless, really, really priceless.
You bring up a really good point. Water related activities is a very common reason for a claim. We see water related problems and losses happen around water related activities all the time. You use the pool example, the ocean. A lot of folks on their honeymoon, and to your point too, which is a great point, is a lot of folks are not used to wearing it, whether it's the wedding band or engagement ring. And when you're around water activities, sometimes the water makes it slip off. There's a lot that happens. We've heard jet ski things and boat things and pools and all of that kind of stuff. And then the other thing too is, weight fluctuations. Like, so if folks lose any significant amount of weight, well, guess what? Those rings aren't going to fit properly, and they're really at risk of being lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even daily working out, swimming in a cold pool can shrink your finger. I mean, there is just so much stuff. So, very important, number one, to make sure your ring is fitting you properly. But then, number two, to have that insurance as a backup in case any of these really common scenarios unfortunately hit you. Dustin, can we talk about what is the investment here in terms of jewelry, insurance, getting our engagement ring, getting our wedding bands covered? What type of cost can we expect?
So it's really reasonable. At BriteCo, it's generally about 0.5% to 1.5% of the total value. So if you have like a $10,000 ring, let's just say, I mean, it could be $50 to $75 annually. So it's really pretty reasonable for the cost of the item. And something I always tell folks to ask themselves, because we get asked the question all the time, like, well, at what value should I be considering getting insurance? And I mean, a general rule of thumb is anything over 1,000 or $1,500. But I always say, look, how painful would it be to go out of pocket to replace that item? If you're like, hey, I don't have whatever that dollar amount is just laying around and it would be really painful, then that's when you should consider insurance.
Absolutely. That's incredibly affordable. And something that came to my mind when you mentioned that dollar amount, I would be willing to bet that most of us are paying a lot more than that to insure like our cell phone. I know I pay a monthly fee to have my cell phone covered in case of loss or damage, stolen, etc. And it's a lot more expensive than what you just named. So this
Oh
is
yeah,
really, truly, truly a no-brainer.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it really does make sense. I mean, not and honestly, like Look, I run an insurance company. Not all types of insurance actually make sense. So there's certain coverages I'm like, you know what, you don't really need that, or it's not good value. Why don't you just self-insure? This should not be a difficult product to purchase. Like you shouldn't have to move mountains and spend days, and this should be simple. And that's sort of kind of what we've done.
Yeah, that's the beauty of BriteCo is you really have made it so easy. I think it's a pretty intimidating topic to someone who doesn't know much about jewelry insurance or anything about jewelry insurance. That to me sounds like a big daunting task that I need to hit the internet, do a ton of research and make sure I'm not going to get ripped off and make sure it's affordable and make sure I understand exactly what's being covered. And the fact that BriteCo is doing that for us in under 2 minutes with a beautiful, very informative, very educational, very clear website is just amazing. I love it.
Thank you. And let's be real, right? Like people strongly dislike insurance and for good reason. It's complicated and confusing and not transparent and all those kinds of things. So, we try to make it easy for those reasons.
And you have.
Don't assume that your homeowner's policy covers jewelry. There is a small amount of coverage in there, but usually it's not adequate. So I always recommend it. And sometimes it might be, generally not. But that's one thing I would definitely look into at the very minimum is just see, hey, do you have proper coverage?
All right, so that's everything we need to know about protecting your engagement ring and any other precious jewelry that you might own. Full coverage starts at just $5 per month. There are no deductibles ever, and you'll enjoy worldwide coverage for loss, theft, damage, even mysterious disappearance, aka setting it on the side of the swimming pool. My husband, John. Let's transition into wedding liability and cancellation coverage. Here's Dustin.
So BriteCo entered the wedding event insurance space because we saw a huge gap in the market. We knew it was an important coverage. We did a lot of market research and talked to consumers and wedding planners and venues and realized, this was an important coverage. And again, it was also a reasonable cost for this coverage. And a lot of venues require it. And when they don't require it, it's still heavily recommended. And then, so that was one reason why we were really interested in this product and this market. The other reason was we felt like there was huge coverage gaps. And again, it was similar to like the jewelry product in terms of, it was outdated coverage and really pain in the butt forms that took too long and were super confusing, and it just didn't feel, it felt like it could be done a lot better.
For someone who's not familiar with wedding liability coverage, can you share with us what that is and who might need it?
So wedding liability coverage is sort of two parts. It's a general liability coverage and then it's broad property coverage. And I can go into a little bit more of what that means, but it covers the host and the honorees, and it covers the guests that are at the wedding. And so the liability portion of it, the general liability, is essentially if something happens at the venue, let's say, and somebody gets hurt and there's some liability that arises, well, a lot of times that could fall on the honorees, the wedding couple. There could be liable or be thought to be held liable. And so that is, and again, I could give some examples there. And then the property piece of the liability coverage is think about a venue where something gets damaged at the venue from a guest. This happens actually all the time. If somebody damages something, a piece of art, or spills things on the rug, or there's a whole host of different things in terms of the property coverage. And so that's what this wedding liability product will cover, things like that. BriteCo offers 5 days of coverage and to cover a whole host of different parts of the wedding. And so, for instance, we want to cover the rehearsal dinner, and we want to cover the ceremony, and we want to cover the party and we want to cover the next day brunch. And that's why we give sort of that 5 days of coverage. One thing that was really important to us when we built this product, and really when we build any product, is that we really want to make sure that we provide sensible, comprehensive coverage. That means like insurance that actually works, that covers you for what you need. That's why we kind of extended to 5 days, because we felt like it was very important. And there's a lot that happens outside of the actual wedding itself, like, or the party. That's why we cover the next day brunch, because things can happen there. And again, there's some potential liability. It's really valuable coverage, and it'll cover kind of those 5 days.
How about host liquor liability? This is one of the more common venue requirements, and I field a ton of questions about it.
So BriteCo will automatically include host liquor liability. And so what is host liquor liability? A lot of times the honorees, the couple at the wedding, will bring in their own alcohol, and it won't be provided by the venue. Like if you're bringing everything, if you're throwing an event where you're basically bringing everything in, you might be liable for that liquor liability. So that's why it's called host liquor liability. If the hosts are sort of bringing in the liquor, there could be quite a lot of liability there if somebody gets overserved. We've all heard these kinds of stories. That is not some sort of liability that you want to take on as the wedding couple or the host of the event. That we automatically, in our base coverage, will automatically cover and offer that host liquor liability. So one of the novel coverages that BriteCo offers, and I believe we're the only ones that offer this, is we cover pets, certain pets, dogs and cats, that are potentially involved in the weddings. Usually you'll see this in the ceremony. A couple loves their dog and their furry friend, and they want to have that dog or cat included in the wedding ceremony. I mean, this is actually a really big growing trend that we've seen with weddings. Most policies, if something happens with that pet, like, it's not covered under that insurance. We wanted to make sure that our policy covers it. So, for example, a dog is included in the ceremony. The dog has an accident on a really expensive carpet. The venue will probably ask you to reimburse them. And we've seen stories like this. And sometimes that carpet that looks innocent can be $5,000 or $7,000. So what you're trying not to do, and this is sort of the peace of mind part of the coverage, is you're trying not to get a bill, an unexpected bill that's not a line item at the end of the day. And you don't want to get that bill for $5,000 for a carpet because the dog accidentally had an accident. Now, this could be more extreme than that, where a dog gets really nervous and does something more extreme, bites somebody or something like that. Not as common, but could definitely happen. And then you have some medical potentially liability there. That's all stuff you just don't even want to get into, and you don't want to think about that as the host or the wedding couple.
Absolutely. So, with this 5 days of coverage, we've got liquor service covered, we've got our pets covered. What type of investment is a couple looking at making to buy this priceless peace of mind? What does that look like?
Again, going back to providing real value in an insurance policy, our policy, the base policy, and there's a couple add-ons. Our base package, our base policy costs $120.
What's included in that, if there are any deductibles, and how a couple would go about filing a claim?
So there are no deductibles, and it really includes most of the things that we discussed in terms of the general liability, broad property coverage, pets, host liquor liability. All of that is included in sort of the base package. In terms of if something were to happen, filing a claim, it's very simple. You go to our website, same concept as we've used. Everything's digital. You fill out a short form online. A claims adjuster will be in touch with you within 1 hour to 24 hours, depending on how extreme the circumstances. Sometimes you need to speak with somebody immediately, and there's something happening at that moment. You just go on our website, you fill out a quick form, and that's all you really need to do to trigger the coverage.
In addition to liability coverage that we just talked about, BriteCo also offers cancellation coverage with an industry unique cancel for any reason option. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so wedding cancellation coverage is sort of like how it sounds. It will provide coverage for if a wedding needs to be canceled, but also postponed. So, and there's a whole bunch of different types of coverage that this will include. So, think about weather-related events that force a cancel or a postponement of the wedding. Um, Illnesses, a lot of times, I mean, COVID was a huge driver and was a big spotlight on this insurance product. Unfortunately, most insurance companies were not covering it, cancellation or postponement due to COVID. We do. I believe we're the only ones that do. Weather-related events, illnesses, things like that. And it will also provide coverage for, let's say there's a vendor no-show. Your florist who you've already put down deposits for didn't show up or canceled last minute or anything like that. So there's also some vendor issues that insurance policy will cover.
That's great. And then, so the event cancellation is an additional coverage. Can you tell us the investment here and how much a couple would expect to spend to add on that cancellation?
For cancellation, it depends on how much, like you actually can denote how much coverage you want in terms of a dollar amount. We usually recommend whatever the cost of the wedding is to put it like is to get coverage for the full amount. So say average cost of a wedding in the US is $30,000 or $35,000. The cost of approximate cost is like $200, $250, somewhere in that range. Super reasonable. And then we also offer, I mean, this is an upcharge, but it's really incredible for peace of mind, is something called cancel for any reason, which I believe is a novel coverage for us. I don't believe anyone else offers this. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You can cancel and get 75% of your payments, your deposits, etc., back for really any reason. The only thing that it wouldn't cover is if it was already a known reason. So let's just say you already knew you were canceling your wedding, and then after the fact you go to try to buy this. We wouldn't cover that, obviously. But anything else, so like cold feet, we would cover that. Or a lot of times, I mean, what I see the most of is it's just wasn't the right time actually. So we're still planning to get married, but that date that we picked and that time, we need another 6 months. The timing wasn't right. But we've had deposits down for the venue and for, the food and the florist and we would lose all those deposits. It actually kind of makes that decision where it's like, hey, we need to push this back 6 months. It's just better for us as a couple. We need more time. It makes that decision much easier and helpful. We also offer that as well.
That's amazing with how many stress points and lost sleep a couple goes through just in the wedding planning process in general to kind of check these boxes and get yourself protected for such a low investment, such a low cost is just absolutely priceless. We have explored the benefits of the liability, the benefits of the event cancellation. Is this something that a couple can bundle and just purchase together, get everything taken care of in one shot?
Yeah, so you definitely can bundle it. We offer both products together online, and you can just go to our website. And again, you can get a quote for both products and you can bundle them together. You can get a discount. So we offer bundle discounts. We actually offer up to 15% of a discount. In total, 10% when you bundle together. We usually do recommend getting both products and they're separate products. They cover different things, but they're both super valuable and pretty incredible peace of mind. Again, you can go online and just check your quote and see if the cost makes sense. But for me and for my money, you're spending so much money on a wedding that protecting yourself, even if it's just a little bit, is really smart, a very worthwhile line item. And so that's why we do actually recommend bundling them. You don't have to, but we do recommend it.
Here's a thought. Could the couple ask for this coverage as a gift?
So absolutely somebody could gift it to the couple. A lot of times we see like when I mentioned like the host of the party, sometimes the host is like the mother or father or mother-in-law and father-in-law. And they're a lot of times we'll see one of those people purchase this coverage. So we'll a lot of times see kind of the host buy it for the venue or for the wedding couple. So yes.
Perfect. So if someone doesn't know what to get you for your wedding, this would be a wonderful thing to suggest to them.
There you go. I love it.
I hope you found today's episode helpful, and a huge thank you to Dustin and BriteCo for coming on to share with us such a priceless product. As a lightning fast recap, you can hop online and choose wedding and jewelry insurance coverage to match your needs and rest easy knowing that you're protected by superior coverage. Get started in under 2 minutes with a super simple online process. Visit brite.co/wedpod for a fast, free quote today and unlock peace of mind knowing that you are completely covered. That website, one more time, is brite.co/WEDPOD. And I'll leave links to that in the show notes for you to visit when you have a hands-free moment. Thanks again for being here today. Cheers to you, and we'll talk again next week, same time, same place.